We're excited that you've joined us here on YouTube for a great message today that the Lord would use to touch your life. We are excited that you can now subscribe and get several messages that will impact your life, whether it is our assistant pastor Pierre Cannings or myself, your pastor Paul Cannings. And we are glad to serve you. We can also continue this process, but not only you subscribing by going to our website. When you go to our website, you could get engaged in our ministries and be able to become engaged in what we're doing here at Living Word Fellowship Church, so we get a chance to be a part of your life to grow you. And not only that, we've got a book that will be able to help you to go from spiritual infancy to spiritual maturity. What are the steps? How do you get there? How do you know you're there? What the fruit of the Spirit looks like? These different things will take place when you get engaged in our website and learn more about us and be able to give. 5 ways to give. When you get to our website, it explains that. And by doing so, we're able to not just touch your life, but the folks at Living Word. We're able to go across the world for the glory of God by those who subscribe, like you will subscribe, in impacting lives. So join us again. As more messages are rolled out, or you go to messages already there, you're able to see God grow in your life, because His Word becomes a viable mechanism to not just know Him, but to experience Him. Come back. Let us grow together.
I'm going to say this to you. If you have not got the sermon notes, you're going to need them. Youth, you are dismissed. Youth, you are dismissed. Grades 7th to 12th grade, you are dismissed to Jordan, Washington. Go get blessed by that word. Now, if you haven't scanned your QR code, you are going to need it today. We are digging deep. Are y'all ready to go? No, wait, man. No. We fit to get into the Word of God, y'all. Are y'all excited about getting into the Word of God? There we go. Not me. Don't be excited about me. Because if it's good, it's God. If it's bad, it's me. So let's get into some good stuff. Can we get into the Word? Y'all ready? So if you weren't here last week, I'm not because of anything, but I challenge you. The good news is it's online. I'm not even trying to be funny. It's online. So therefore, if you're saying, hey, there's some things I didn't know from last week, we would challenge you to go back and listen, because it will really help you in catching on to this story. It's a continuation. So let us bow in prayer. Dearly Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity for us to dive into your word. God, you are good and you are God. So it's not my words that we should be hanging on to. It's the fact that you are still speaking to us. God, despite what we did last night, last week, last month, you still want today. It was by your grace that we can receive your word for our encouragement, edification, and sometimes our rebuke. So God, I pray that none of us are distracted with our lives and focus on what you could do with it. God, I pray that we don't allow our past to stop us from moving forward, that today we focus on the fact that there is still something left for us to do. None of us are done. None of us are finished. It is not until we finish our race. So, God, I pray that today that I pour out your word. So purify me, that everything that proceeds out of my mouth comes from your meditations. God, you are a beautiful and awesome God. Watch over the hearts of your people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. What I challenge you to do is stand with me as I read the word, and then we'll dive straight in really quick. I want to start giving God honor. So if it's different for you, amen. If you don't know where this comes from, Nehemiah chapter 8, where they stand and read the word of God. We're going to be in Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 15. I'm going to read a couple verses because I want you to see it for yourself. In Nehemiah 6:15, it says this: Then on the 7th day, they arose early at the dawning of the day and marched around the city in the same manner 7 times. Only on that day, they marched around the city 7 times. At the 7th time, when the scribes blew the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city shall be under the ban, and it shall be, and all that is in it belongs to the Lord. Only Rahab the harlot and all who are with her in her house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom we sent." Y'all may be seated. So I'm going to do a couple things really quick, so don't be mad at me while you sit down. I want you to hear this. I comes from a good place, and it comes from a good heart. What I'm fixing to say. How many of y'all use the dishwasher? Raise your hand. That's good. That's good. You're not judged. Feel free. How many of you use the dishwasher to dry the dishes? Yeah. It's only a dish rack. It's a $600 dish rack. How many of y'all's mamas raised y'all like that? All right, let me ask this secondary question, which is going to make a lot of us, me, Pierre Cannings. So if you're with me, you feel me. How many of y'all mama made you wash the dishes before you put it in the dishwasher? Mamas. Why? And then she would give you the reason why. It's because you got to get everything off before it goes in. Then what's the point of a thing called the dishwasher if I'm doing all the dishwashing? It don't make no sense. So when I got married, I thought I was free from. I thought God had alleviated my upbringing, only to find out my wife, who was staring at me so vigilantly, my wife was like, hey, why are you using the dishwasher? And I was like, because we have one. And she was like, but you got to wash it first. So for the last 16 years of an amazing marriage, I have been washing dishes and using the dishwasher only as a dish rag. Here's the secondary thing, let me tell y'all, is after you wash the dishes, what happens? How many of y'all are 24-hour putter-uppers? How many of y'all are like, as soon as it's done, guess what you got to do? You got to dry it off and put it in. But if you use the dishwasher, it heats it up so it can supposedly dry it off and leave all those water stains that everybody gets mad about. But the whole point of washing dishes is to what? Put it up when you're done. Now, some of us are a little lazy. Is that we just go use the dish that we just washed and we let it sit there until we pick it back up to use it again. Don't raise your hand for that. You notice I didn't ask. Okay? What I mean is that sometimes we'll do the beginning work, but we won't do the end. It's sometimes when everything seems clean to you, you won't finish off your obedience. When the battle seems won to you with the dishwasher or not, many of us leave it in the dishwasher until further use again. You're not completing your obedience. Is that some of us, not all, some of us know that God said what to do, but when we finally get what we want, we stop obeying. Some of us, when we finally get the victory in our marriages, in our jobs, in our singleness, in whatever it is, we say, God, thank you for getting me here. I'm done. And God is saying, no, even when I finish doing what I want to do in your life, you still got work to do. Now, some of those things are exclusive, meaning they don't belong to you. And we'll talk about that in a second. That I want y'all to understand that some of us have incomplete obedience. And then we want to have the results. And God's like, I was never done. And some of us get lazy when he finally knocks down your walls. We have become lazy Christians that I'll go to church when I feel like I have a problem. I'll start praying when something's not solved in my life again. But as soon as we get life like we want it, everything stops. And God is saying, not only are you exclusively mine, but your obedience is exclusively mine, even when it's what you want. I wonder if people's lives will be different if they finished off their obedience. Turn with me. You're already there in Joshua chapter 6. You're going to read it with me. Watch this for a second because it starts off exactly how you would expect. The same manner. Watch these words for me. It says in verse 15, it says, now on the seventh day, we talked about that last week, when the completion was done, watch this, they rose early at the dawning of the day and marched around the city watch these words, same manner. Now, I went and did my research. If you go up to verse 4, he never said a time of day they were supposed to do it. They chose the morning. Couple of reasons. One, it could have been cooler. Two, it's the first thing. They were excited about what was going to happen on the seventh day, meaning we're going to get up and do this obedience on the seventh day because we're excited because God is going to knock down the walls today. So therefore, what I mean for many of us is when you get up in the morning, before we even get to the next part, when we get up in the morning, the first thing you should say is, because God, I know I'm victorious today. I'm going to be obedient as soon as I wake up. See, some of us, we have a delayed obedience to our morning, meaning we don't dedicate our day to God. We have stopped believing that despite what happens in your day, just because you woke up that morning, you are still victorious. The fact that you're breathing in oxygen means you're still victorious. The fact that he gave you a brand new morning means you're still victorious. So you wake up and say, in the morning, I'm going to give him everything I got. How many of us, I'm not trying to be legalistic, so let me be careful and clear, that how many of us, when we wake up in the morning, the first thing we do is dedicate that day to God? I know. How many of us are like me who struggle to roll over in our beds and the first thing we do is check emails and things we have to do for work and things we have to do on the J, checking your traffic, making sure you're not going to be late, checking your weather, make sure your hair look good if you have some. That is all happening. Some of us get up, first thing we do, hop in the shower, we don't even pray. We're just going about our day. And God's like, hey, if you know I'm victorious in your day, why wouldn't it be the first thing you do is to do what I say? We have lost morning meditation in our Christianity. We have lost what it means to have a morning prayer with God. We have lost what it means to give God everything we have. The moment we breathe in our first breath of oxygen, we have lost. When he brings you from subconscious to conscious, we have lost the dedication. Second thing, he says in the same manner. That means for the first 6 days, they were doing it the right way. Correct? That means they weren't disobeying for the 6 days, and now it's on the 7th day they're going to have to march around 7 times, and they knew this, so they got up in the morning because not only was it, hey, I'm going to give it this day, we're going to be victorious. The second thing you could say about that is that they said they knew how to march around it what? How many times did they have to go around that day? They had to go around the full time. So they knew this was a longer march. So why not get up early to do the longer march? How many of y'all, when you wake up, the obedience from yesterday is the same manner as it is today? Or how many of us allow our emotions to dictate our obedience day to day? Or how many of us allow what we are anxious about to dictate the next day? How many of us allow where we are in our lives to dictate day to day obedience, meaning it's not the same manner as yesterday? That some of us will change whether we feel like God is doing what we want him to do and we don't finish off our obedience. Today is the day where you say, every day I wake up and I give you the same manner. The same manner is tricky because in the word it means that in the same thing we did yesterday, we're going to do it today. So therefore, it doesn't matter what we went to bed with, we still get up the same way. It doesn't matter if my feet are tired from the first 6 days, on the 7th day, it's the same day. How many of us say, you know what, I'm too tired to do this march today? And then you wait and you're frustrated because God has not torn down your walls, but many of us have lazy obedience, meaning we're not going to complete the job. So it doesn't matter how your husband acted last night, you still have to act the same manner today. It doesn't happen what happened with your wife did last night, you still act in the same manner today. It doesn't matter what your job did yesterday, you still act in the same manner today. The same manner carries. But some of us, we have a very lazy or incomplete obedience. And what I would challenge you to do is when you wake up in the morning, you say, God, I'm going to obey you in the same manner, if not better today, because today you're requiring more. So I'm going to get up early. Can I say this? I don't feel burdened to say this. There's nothing wrong with waking up a little earlier to get your time in with God. Now, I'm not trying to be legalistic, y'all. So I'm very tentative because I used to be a very legalistic person. But there is nothing wrong with saying, God, I'm going to wake up 20 minutes early just to have some time with you. And I know that sounds very like, oh, that's too much for me, Pierre. You don't know I got to get up at 5 anyways. And I'm like, and? Because why not dedicate your day? But before I get too harping on one point, I want to get to the second point. And I know this may be quick for you, but watch what happens. He keeps going. And only 7 times, only on that day, they marched around the city, same as verse 4, 7 times. And on the 7th time, when the priest blew the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, shout, for the Lord has given you the city. So before he gives the same instruction, he starts to detail the instruction. He starts to say there's some things that are going to be set apart. Meaning, hey, before these walls fall, let me give you the next set of instructions. Because what's going to happen on the inside of the walls happens just as much as what happened on the outside of the walls. You're like, Pierre, why is that important? It's important because sometimes when the walls fall in our life, we forget we still got work to do on the inside. It's that when your outside starts looking good, many of us forget God is still doing work on the inside. When you start dressing right and your money right, you forgetting God's still working on the inside person. That your marriage, even if you now went from single to married and you think that has now established you and made you comfortable, it doesn't mean that God's not doing work on the inside. You know why people are shocked in marriage? It's because the person on the outside starts to tell you about yourself on the inside. We get mad at the person because that person finally telling you about yourself. You selfish. No, I'm not. Oh, no, you are selfish. And that person starts to tell you about yourself. But you only got married because y'all look good on the outside. Y'all were Instagram official. Y'all were cute. Y'all wore matching outfits, wear jams on Christmas. You was that cute. And God's like, I'm not worried about the outside, but watch the work I got to do on the inside. Some of y'all getting lazy because you're finally looking good on the outside. You come to church every Sunday. You starting to look official. You even joined the church. Now you went through membership classes. Look at you. You are on the roll. You are holy now. Let me lay it out for you in chore patterns because I grew up doing chores. We didn't have no lazy household. But my mama did something different. And I don't know how y'all feel about what I'm fixing to say, but it raised me to be a decent husband, I hope, baby. I don't mind laundry. I couldn't do cutting the lawn. Paul had to do it. I know y'all think it's a cop way out. I have really bad allergies. But my mama was very detailed with the laundry, meaning we had to read the tag. Oh, I know. If it said warm, it went in the warm pile. If it said delicate, it had to go in the delicate pile. If it's whites, we separated whites. If it's colors, we separate colors. My mama made me turn the clothes inside out. That means every shirt, spread it out. Every shirt. And Paul was not gracious because he had to cut the lawn. I had to do the laundry. So there was no graciousness to Paul. He would have them jumbled up. Socks were still together. And I had to go inside out on all them things. But one thing that we all know, whether you agree with me about the warm and the cold and all this other mess, what you do agree on is the delicates don't go with the regular clothes. That in your obedience to do the laundry, there's still things that don't belong with the regular. That things are set apart for certain usages. And if it's silk, it doesn't belong in certain ways. And if it doesn't go on the dryer at a certain temp, and they have to be done a certain type of way because that clothes means something a little bit more. What I guess I'm trying to say is that when it's God's, it's separate. When it's God's way of saying, I am the delicate. You don't throw me in with your regular clothes. And what I require to put in a separate pile, you better put it in a separate pile. If not, your life going to be shrunken. If not, the clothes that you want to wear on a daily basis, the silk that is precious, ain't precious no more because you just treat it like it was cotton. See, many of us treat, when we're done doing the separation, we forget there's more details to your obedience. That some of us, let me give you a best example. You're not going to like this example, but I'm going to harp on it for a second. That many of us, we forgot that God wants things dedicated that we thought we were done with. That God said, there's some delicate areas in your life I'm still doing work on. I need them to be separated out so you can do some work, but he's going to detail it in for a second. And I want you to understand this. The best example I can give you is that even every area after you're married, God is still doing work on. There's still some delicate areas. I bet this is going to spring some folks, so I got to be careful. Even in your intimacy with your husband or your wife, you know that's still God's. The reason why some of our areas of intimacy are lacking because you forgot that was God's area too. You thought as soon as you turned on the music, it was y'all's time. You thought God couldn't hear y'all. God can hear you. So can your kids, but let's move on. You thought as soon as you got a boyfriend, God was done. He was like, oof, man, we official now. Finally, he posted it on Instagram. Golly, I was waiting. And God's like, no. I still have things in this dating life that I still want. I still got things in your marriage that I still want. Your marriage was mine. Your kids are mine. They are dedicated to me. Like, I let you have kids so they could be image bearers of me, not you. And we walk around with this whole mentality like, you bear my last name. They don't. They bear God's name because they're his. But you keep treating things like they're yours. This is our time. This is our date night. This is our. And God's like, no, this is mine. And I'm going to prove it to you. Watch what he says. When you get inside the walls, just because I'm fixing to break them down doesn't mean I'm done with the work. Oh, it's getting good. He says, the city shall be under, watch these words, the ban. So hold up. Don't you hate this? Time out. You telling me you finna tear down walls, now you finna ban it? Like, you just gave us freedom to march into the walls, and now you finna tell me in the walls we can't do what we want? No. So you telling me now, now that I'm married, I can't just do what I want? No. That's why some of us don't like God, because he feel like he's a whole bunch of rules. But no, he has things he bans for a reason. He bans pornography for a reason. He tells you keep your eyes pure for a reason. He tells you keep your honoring ways for a reason. He's banning these things he's fixing to tell them about for a reason, and there's multiplicity. So now that we're on this section about it's set apart, let me detail it out. He starts to tell you what you can and cannot have. But the question, since the beginning of time in Adam and Eve, do we really obey what he says, what you can and cannot have? Would we be in some of these situations if we say, hey, God, this is yours, it's not mine? Probably not. But we start to own stuff that ain't ours. Tell me why. Some of y'all bought a car. Try not paying it. The bank will soon remind you it ain't yours. When that tow truck lifted up and you run banging on the hood like you don't know how hard I work for, and they like, it's above me now. I'm sorry, and the tow truck driver, he cold in the mud. He just looking at you like, hey, that's between you and your bank. My job was to pick up your ride. The bank what? It reminds you that wasn't yours in the first place. So as God tows away some of your pieces of your life, you wondering, you banging on the hood saying, I thought that was mine. God looking at you like, sorry. I told you that wasn't yours in the first place. And some of us mad at God because he's starting to take things back that he gave to you thinking you would do right by it, but you haven't. You started to own it. It's not yours. You are borrowed. It's borrowed time. Your life was his, but let's move on. He starts to say, the ban does not mean restriction. You know what the ban means? Devotion. I want you to get this right. Because sometimes when we see God say don't do something, we think it's a negative thing. He's saying it's not banning. I'm devoting it to myself. Let me say it better. I'm devoting it. I'm wondering if you will devote it to me. Will you devote these privacy areas to me? Will you devote what is mine? But I want to lay this out for you before you even get a little bit ahead. The word means not only is it devotion and dedication of what God has designated as his. Whew, that means he's saying, I've designated things that are mine only. Like Sunday. Whew. Sunday is his. It's not NFL. It's not golf. It's not brunch. It's his. And he's saying, I want my day. And some of it like, look, man, give me options. And God's like, I'm not giving you options. It's mine. Not only is it exclusively his, watch what he says. He keeps going. He says, watch this. He goes, under the ban and all that is in it belongs to the Lord. Now, I had to write this note down so you can understand. If you go back up, he says to verse 4, he says, I gave it to you. He says, I'm going to give you Jericho. Some of us like that when God just blessed us and we didn't have to do nothing for it. I didn't have to work for this. God just blessing on blessing on blessing. Oh, Jesus. Come to church, you all crying because he blessing you. But if he gave it to you, that means it belongs to him. Meaning he's saying, I just knocked down the walls. Why would you claim something you didn't even work for? Let me give you an intimate story. I met Monica in high school. Why would I start claiming my wife when God says give her back to the Lord unblemished? Why would I start claiming something I never worked for? How do I know that? Look at me. Look very good. And then look at Monica. I didn't work for that because there's nothing in this face that says, that's wannable. And the fact that she told her friend she thought I was cute, that's God blinding. That's a miracle. Look at God work. She must have been on the road to Damascus. God put scales over her eyes. Now she trapped. It's your fault. I just envision Monica rolling over one day and be like, oh, Jesus. Didn't know it'd be him, God. So why would I start claiming Monica like I worked for it? You know what my line was, y'all? I'm going to break y'all into how I got Monica. This is not really how I got her because God was working on her heart and eyes. I have no game, y'all. That's why God knew to get me married young because there's pee in the pool. I couldn't make it in this dating pool. For those who are young adults, you know exactly what I mean. There is pee in the pool. I wouldn't have made it. I came up to Monica and I was like, hello, because she was sitting with her friend. I was like, hello, ladies. So her friend got up and walked away. Thank God. Praise the Lord. And now I'm nervous. And I was like, I see you have a history book there. Is that world cultures or... Second thing I said that I didn't know what to do. I was running out of words. We're on the way to the bus. It's my last shot, last chance. I was like, and this is not a play, y'all. This is genuinely serious. I was like, I can't get wrapped up in how beautiful she is. I really mean this. I can't get wrapped. So I told her, I was like, man, let me make sure she's saved, because if we start dating, I'm going to lose it. I'm not going to maintain. So I said, all right, cool. I said, hey, can I have your number so I can take you to church? It worked. Look at God. The rest is history. I guess what I'm trying to say is what? I didn't work for that. God tore down the walls, ladies and gentlemen. And what I mean by that is, if I knew I didn't do anything to earn my marriage, why in the world would I start making it mine? And some of us have started to orchestrate how we want our marriage to be, and God's looking at you like, man, that wasn't yours in the first place. Now you have a marriage that looks like you, but it don't look like me, because I never told you to design it like that. It wasn't yours in the first place. And now we're getting mad at our own design. Oh, y'all don't like that last part. Huh. Y'all remember when y'all used to be excited about your husband? Now he's there and he's present. Under the band that it is in belongs to the Lord. But watch this, where he starts to what? Dedicate some other things. I want to, before I even move on, there was some historical context. I know this is a lot. This is my heavy point, and I'll get to the ending. It's going to be beautiful. Watch this. It says this, that not only is a band something dedicated and belonging to the Lord, it also says that, watch these, I want to read this well. It says that nothing can substitute what he bands or what he devotes to himself. That means you can't substitute it for something else. That means you can't say in one area of your life, God, I'll give you this, but not this. If God looks at you and he says, that's mine, guess what he's saying? You can't bring something else. How do you know that? Check Cain and Abel. Cain said, hey, I know what you want. This is what you're getting. And God's like, I ain't burning that. So you got to ask yourself, if God's not burning, which means blessing your life, maybe you're bringing him the wrong stuff. Maybe God is looking at you like, you can't substitute what I give. If I had said it's mine, it's mine. You can't bring the other stuff. Some of y'all are like, you know what, I'm going to serve only on first and third Sunday. No, it's mine. I'm only coming when I want. That's not the sacrifice I asked for. You're not sacrificing to come to church, ladies and gentlemen. Let me give you a clear point. You didn't do him a favor today. He did you a favor so you can be in his presence. So therefore, he's saying, I need it every time. Don't bring your half efforts to me. Don't bring your half giving to me. I want what I said is mine. Oh, y'all don't like that. Not only can you not substitute it, you can't sell it. You can't sit there and take what's his and give it to somebody else. Uh-oh. How many of y'all are giving away what's God's to somebody that don't belong to? How many of us have gave our purity away to somebody that don't belong to? How many of us have gave our thoughts and our emotions to somebody it doesn't belong to? How many of us have gave our hearts to somebody it doesn't belong to? How many of us gave our feelings to somebody it don't belong to? And when they mishandle it, you mad? God said, I banned that for me. That was devoted to me. Your heart is mine. That means where your will is, where your emotions sit, where everything I tell you, it says your mind is mine. That means if I say these things are mine, stop giving it to other people. But don't be mad when you give it away without my consent and now you're mad about the results. That's on you. You decided to take your heart and give it to somebody else and put all your hope in that. Y'all wasn't married, but you sure acted like you was. Yeah, that's right. That could have been an accident. It's all good. Last thing about the band, not only is it can't be substituted, can't be sold, exclusively his, there's one more thing. It's always done for his glory. That even if you go into the Old Testament, Ezekiel, you can look at it, the word keeps repeating itself. If you go all the way to Deuteronomy 7, verse 20, and then you go to verse 19, and you go later on to 6:17, it says every time he uses this word restricted or devoted to me, it was because he was going to get glory out of it. Doesn't that crazy that your marriage, your singleness, God can still get glory even out of your loneliness and your anxiety and your fears? God can still get glory out of things you've deemed something that can't get glory out of. The problem is we stop letting our life be testimonies to people for God's glory. We are more private. We hide our stuff. We don't tell nobody what we're going through. So God can get glory even out of your pain. God can get glory even while he knocks down walls. God is not done with you yet. But every time he says it's mine, you have to submit it so he can get glory. But if you don't submit it, he can't use it. My marriage, my children will always be for his glory. It gives me purpose. It gives them purpose. Let me add something to it real quick, because he goes down to one more thing. Here's the crazy thing. As he's talking, he's telling Joshua more instructions. Watch what else he says. Only Rahab. Oh, this is you going, I got to be careful, but I'm going to be careful because I can't sing. Only Rahab the harlot. Man, oh man, oh man. Not only the righteous one, not only the prestigious guy in there with a lot of money, only Rahab. But then he gives her the what she was the harlot. You know what else is going to be devoted to me? Not what else I'm fixing to list to you. And I'm going to give you the list in a second. I want that person devoted to me. The person that you wouldn't expect. The person who had faith in chapter 2, verse 17. The person that had faith when nobody else did. The harlot that lived in the wall. Meaning people knew who she was. She had a high traffic to her house. And you know how I know that? Because the soldiers knew where to go. They played themselves. Hey, Rahab, you seen him? How you know my name? Oh, nah, I don't know you like that. You've been here before, haven't you? Can I say this to you? God didn't save the person who looked good. God didn't even save the person who had a good reputation. God just saved the person who had faith enough to hide the spies. See, I guess what I'm trying to get you to understand is your past, whatever you have, whoever's in your docket, whoever's in your body count, whoever's here, there, or whatever it was, that's in your past. Because God can still save you from a wall that's fixing to fall down. My God is not done, no matter what your past is. And you think he can't save you. You think there's nothing else he can do. You don't know how depressed I am. You don't know how sad I am. And God says, I can care less about your past, but I can save you in your present. The only thing I'm asking for is faith. That's what I'm asking for. Do you put your faith in me? Because I can save you. And guess what else he says less than the verse? And everybody you bringing in your house. I can care less about where you came from. What I can say is if you have faith, not only does it affect you, it can save your whole household. It says even to the woman, right? It says to the woman, it says, you can sanctify your house by how you act. Even if your man is tripping, I can save your whole house by how you give faith to me, and I can sanctify the rest of them jokers. Why? Because you put your actions and your faith in me. Your actions showed me that you had faith. You saved the spies. You knew I was going to do what I did. You put your faith in a God. You fear who I am, and that I'm going to save you and everybody you bringing along. Oh, you don't know how beautiful it is that God is after the one. Because guess what? Some of us remember our past. You the one. You remember your days in the club. You remember your days laying down when you shouldn't have. You remember the days when you was doing what you shouldn't have. And God saw it all. And he said, you still the one. The reason why you're in church today is not because you all of a sudden got good. It's because he saw you living in a wall, doing what you wasn't supposed to do. But the moment you said, God, I put my faith in you, use mine now. Do you appreciate it though? Some of us got saved from the wall, but don't appreciate it no more. Because if you appreciate it, we wouldn't have to ask you to sing. If you see your house what it should have been based on your past and what you've been through, and now your house is looking good, you would be excited about a God who took you from the wall. You devoted to me, though, Rahab. You know, Rahab lived amongst them from that point forward. God's people. That means now everybody else is going to be banned. They're going to be destroyed. Every person in the walls was going to be destroyed but her. You don't understand. Like, it wasn't like everybody else made it. Nobody else made it but her. How many of y'all seen people found you fall but you? Everybody else lose their job but you. Everybody getting divorces but you. Y'all all came from a similar background, same street, but everybody somehow is not making it but you. But guess what? That ain't you. That's him. Shall live because she hid. He tells you why. Because she hid the messengers whom we sent. But as for you, but before I move on to what you get to keep, because I know man's like, man, what's my blessings at? Bless me, Pierre. Let me detail what he wants. And y'all ain't gonna like this. And don't worry, it's not turning into a giving sermon, but take what you want from it. But all the silver, this is what God's saying is mine. Verse 19, but all the silver and gold and articles of bronze and iron and are holy. What's these words? Watch these words. Are holy to the Lord. You know what holy means? Set apart. So he's saying, not only am I devoting things to myself, I'm setting them apart for my use. You know what God also calls you? Holy. He said, you're supposed to be set apart for me. You're my holy nation. So why aren't you set apart then? Why can't we tell the difference between Christians and non-Christians no more? Why does your Instagram look like everybody else's? Why does your Facebook look like everybody else's? Why does your emotions look like everybody else's? Why when you mad, you cuss just like everybody else? Why when you mad, you don't honor your husband or your wife just like everybody else? Why do you not look set apart if I said you're set apart? You holy. I made you that way. You couldn't make yourself holy. Guess what? I got news for you. You couldn't do it. I did it on the cross. I made you holy on the cross. You couldn't do it. He said, I want these things set apart. But let's move on. Not only he says, iron are holy to the Lord. They shall go into the treasury of the Lord. Let me break this down for you real quick, just in case you didn't know. There is no temple yet. It's not been built. You know who builds a temple later and has a treasury in there? Solomon. Solomon ain't even here. They still walking into the promised land. That means God is planning for his future even when you can't see it. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean God doesn't have a plan for it. Just because you don't know who's coming next after you doesn't mean you shouldn't save so they can benefit from you. Uh-oh. They didn't have a treasury. And I'm not finna talk about your savings account, ladies and gentlemen. Let go. You're all right. What I am fixing to talk about is just because you can't see your children's children doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't devote your marriage to the Lord. Just because you can't see your grandkids on top of grandkids and your obedience and you changing who your family was because God saved you, now your marriage looks different. Just because you ain't seen the fruit from it, just because you ain't rich doesn't mean your kids won't benefit from you. But what we do is we say, God, I don't even know why you asking for a treasury. We walking around. What we treasuring for? And God's like, because I got a plan for the treasury. The second thing I'm going to ask is, everything he asked for was expensive? If you broke coming from Egypt, you don't have a lot. Wouldn't you think, man, save the silver and gold for ourselves. We got to build one day. This is what I want you to know. This is the beauty of God. Is if you trusted him before, why do you need to save up if he's tearing down walls and giving you promised land anyway? So God's looking at you like, you don't need to save silver and gold. Why save it? That's for me. If I'm going to make a promised land for you, you won't even need the money because I rain down manna from heaven. See, some of us are saving for a rainy day, so we're taking what's his. We don't even want to do giving. We don't do tithes. We don't even give to the church. We're saying, hey, God, whatever is rich is mine because I got to make it. And God's like, whoa, who got you the job in the first place? Whoa. Who got you the apartment or the house you've been asking for anyways? Like, who do you think you are? That you saving for a rainy day but don't realize I'm the one that causes rain? Who do you think you are? And just the same way I gave it is the same way I could take it away, because what I gave you is mine. You know what happened with American Christianity? We like to hold money tight. That's why I wonder why there's so many poor people around us. It's because people that have it don't give it. Yeah, nobody wants to talk about that. You can do tithes and offering all day, but we don't want to talk about the fact that your coworker's been laboring. You know she got 5 kids and she's struggling, and you still ain't gave her $1. You ain't even bought her lunch. You knew what she's going through. You see her crying at her desk, and you still won't do nothing. Like, man, I don't want to touch my savings. You have a savings. Do something with it. Because when you die, it don't go with you. And then Ecclesiastes says, then you give it to your kids and they blow it. What you doing? It's his. Stop holding your money tight. It says, they shall go to the treasury of the Lord. Some people debate whether there's the fact that he was saving for his temple, or he was telling them that what is mine, no matter how good it looks, is mine. And I'm going to say this because he throws a word in here. I know you're like, Pierre, you're not going to finish, but watch what word he throws in here, because it's going to get good. It gets even better. It says in verse 18, but as for you, I know I went backwards. I just want to let you know it was God's. As for you, only keep yourselves from the things under the ban. So you do not, watch these words, covet them. Oh, this word hits in America. Covet. You know what covet means? Just like the band meant devotion. You know what covet means? Desiring something that ain't yours. You know why it says do not covet your neighbor's wife? Because he's saying the wife ain't yours. You can't want her. Oh, but America makes you want everything that's not yours. They spend 4 minutes during the Super Bowl, pay $5, $8, $9 million for 30 seconds to get you to want something that you know you can't afford. Because you're going to covet it. You're going to start desiring something you know adds no value to your life. How do I know this? Just walk around and look at people's belts in the Galleria. They got an LV belt, but still live in an apartment. The LV belt is your rent. Your Prada shoes goes into a 6x6 closet. Your Jordan collection goes into his new jet, and your behind still riding in that Corolla. He got 3 yachts on your behind. Covet. Covet means desire, but the thing is that the word desire is not that God doesn't want you to have desires, because he says he'll give you the desires of what? Okay, so what is he saying? He's not saying don't have desires, ladies and gentlemen. He's not saying don't want something. He's just saying make sure your heart matches mine. So when you go buy something, the first thing you should be asking yourself is what? Does my heart match God's? Because if it's something he doesn't want and he's put under a devotion ban, then I don't want it. The problem is we're wanting something that God's saying it ain't yours. Some of us have gotten in relationships knowing that man or woman was not yours in the first place. That person was not saved. You can't desire something God's telling you not to unequally yoke with. But then you get into an unequally yoked relationship and wondering why your eggs are scrambled. That's on you. That wasn't supposed to be your desire. Your desire is to be willing to wait to find somebody who matches the yoke so y'all can do the labor. Because if you know what yoke means, it means that 2 oxen were under a yoke. And if they're under a yoke, they were supposed to do work. So therefore, any relationship I enter, whether business, friendships, etc., is supposed to be under the same yoke, because we're all going to see the same purpose. Therefore, I only desire an ox that is in the same what? Spiritual strength as me, so we ain't doing circles. But if one ox is stronger than the other, we doing circles and not straight lines. Now, some of y'all wonder why you keep doing circles in your life, because you yoked to the wrong person. But y'all don't want to talk about that. This ain't dating. Eve's desire didn't match it. She desired something that God forbid. That's the problem. Is that desiring something that is under prohibition from God, under the ban of God, only is going to lead you to what we in now. How many of y'all desire to tell your husband or wife off? How many of y'all have envisioned telling your boss what you really feel? But you know what's funny? I gotta be careful. You know what's funny? Married couples do things to each other they won't do to their own boss. Let me tell you why. Just in case you were wondering. One you have respect for because he signs a check. The other one you can care less about. Because if you really cared about your spouse, would you really tell him and not filter your feelings through God first? Some of us have no filter because we forget. But when we have, for some reason at the job, we have we have deleted 30 emails before we sent one because we have a filter. But some of us won't filter what we tell our own husband. We won't filter what we tell our own wives because you don't care. I know they even cut my mic off on that one. Let me be done. Desire. Banning. But then he tells you what happens, and I got to be done. He says, watch this in verse. He says this. And make the camp of Israel, bottom of verse 18, accursed and bring trouble into it. He says, if you do this, if you take things that aren't yours, the whole camp gets it. How do you know that? Go to chapter 7. My man Achan decided to take some things that God banned. The whole camp started to suffer. So therefore, I look at some of our homes and say, is your home suffering because you keep taking things that ain't yours? I look at some of our jobs and say, the reason why something's not happening is because you're ruining the whole camp. I look at our kids and say, dang, is that some of us who have ruined the whole camp with our actions? Achan took it, put it under his tent. The whole camp was jacked. He dug it up so nobody could find it. Nobody knew who it was. That means he did a good job of hiding what he took. Some of y'all walked in church hiding what you took, but it doesn't mean God can't see it. So sometimes you're waiting for the walls to fall down and God looking at you, but I already know you're going to take things that ain't yours. And you're going to hide it so you can walk in church looking like you good. Y'all the couple, y'all the ones, y'all the singles that everybody wants to be like. And God's looking at you like, no, but I see what's under your tent. And now you're affecting your whole fam. Talk to some of the older veterans in our church and ask them if they've ever done something that affected the whole family. And they would say, yeah, I messed up. My Achan took something that wasn't his because he didn't trust. That's the last thing I'm going to say. Many of us are taking things we don't belong to us because we don't trust God to provide in the future. So Achan had to take something because he didn't think the God who got him across the Jordan, the God who tore down the walls of Jericho, and he could see it. He couldn't trust the guy that did all that, so he took something. Sometimes many of us are taking what's not ours because we don't trust God to provide. You took a husband, a boyfriend, a girlfriend that's not yours because what? You coveted things that weren't yours because you didn't trust God to provide in your future. Let it go. He will provide. He will tear down the walls. That's not on you. Well, let's get to verse 20. Now it's time to get it. So he finishes all the instructions of when the walls go down. This is what I want you to do. Now he tells them, let's go do it. But here's the craziest thing about the verse, and I know it's going to take me a quick, short summary of what's going to happen in verse 20, but I'm just going to read it to you because you're going to be like, it's going to preach itself, and watch it. So the people shouted, and the priest blew the trumpets, and when the people heard the trumpet of the walls, the people shouted with a great shout, and the wall fell down flat. That's it, right? So that the people went into the city, every man straight ahead, and they took the city. That's it. That's the end of the war. You know what's cool about the dishwasher, babe? You got to press the button. It does the rest of the work. I don't mind giving a little rinse, wash, because that's my marching around the city. But when I press the button, it washes itself. You know why we don't have clotheslines anymore? Some of y'all who do, I'm not saying that's your thing. I'm good. You know what? That dryer is so beautiful because when you're done sorting it, doing what you got to do, you press the button and walk away. You know what this verse is saying? When God wins your war, It's as simple as pressing the button and walking away. He's saying, you did what I had to do. You did exactly what I told you to do. You marched around the city like I told you to do. The trumpets did what they supposed to do. Or the horns did what they did. And then you shouted like I told you. Now the war is over. I was reading a commentary, and one of the beautiful things it said the reason why verse 20 is so short is because when God does military, it's not a long verse. When God wins your war, it's short. When you try to win your war, it's 7 chapters. And then this happened. How do I know this? Talk to your girlfriends one day. Be like, how long did I tell you to keep you on the phone? Man, that was an hour and a half, babe. I'm sorry, sis. That was a long time. Why? Because you detailing how you tried to win. Fellas trying to talk to each other, trying to finally vent. We don't know how to. We try. We don't know how to express emotion. Man, that was crazy. And the guy responds with, dang. That's a long session. My point is what? Some of us are writing chapters about our victories, not realizing you'll lose the war. You won the argument last night with your husband, great. You won the argument with your wife, great job, good job, you won. But you're losing the war. But when God takes over your marriage, over your jobs, over your singleness, over your lives, over your children, when he starts to take over things, even your sex life, your intimacy, when he starts to say, this is yours, God, I'm going to give it back to you, and he says, press the button. Just press the button. Shout, press the button. Shout, press the button. Stop hitting it against the wall, that ain't going to work. Stop knocking at the gate, that ain't going to work. Stop doing what you think is right. And don't shout when it's not your time. It ain't your time. We talked about this last week. Know your role and know your time. Shout when I tell you to shout and then press the button. I love the brevity of verse 20 because when he wins, you don't have a long chapter. And guess what? I'm going to say this and I'm going to say it nice. You also don't have resistance. You notice Jericho didn't say, and then they came out. And then they started fighting. No, it was like the wall fell flat and then we marched forward. Man, I want some things in my life to fall flat and I just march forward. But you know why some of us we're going backwards? Because we quit. You know why some of us ain't going forward over past the walls? Because we stopped being obedient. You know what? We ain't getting the blessings of what God has done in our lives because we ain't pressing the button. And we look at God and saying, God, why are these walls in my life? And he's like, I'm just waiting on you to do what I see it. Because when you're done and I write the verse, it's quick. Man, I wish you could recount right now the testimonies of when God won your war. The second thing I'll add to that last real quick is that there's details in the obedience, but the victory is short. Have you noticed he spent more time detailing the obedience than he did talking about the end? He spent 19 verses telling them what to do. And when they did it, it was over. God is sitting there looking at your lives and saying, I'm just going to detail what I tell you to do. Leave the rest up to me. That's it. I'm going to detail what you need to do in your marriage, in your singleness, in your sex lives. Just do what I say. Don't have sex before marriage. Why? Because that's a sin in the body. I'm going to detail the why and the how, but when the victory comes, you'll receive it. You'll be blessed by it because the walls came down. Watch your eyes. Don't sin. Pluck it out if it gets in the way. Not literally, but make sure you do everything you can not to jeopardize your eyes. That's a detailed provision. That's a banning your eyes from looking at something impure. Now he's going to tell you to do what? And the rest is up to me. The problem is faith. The problem is obedience, because faith without works is dead. So after the laundry is done, there's 2 things I want you to know about us. There's 2 choices you have. The laundry's done. Some of us have done the other route where you leave it in the basket. But for our household, Monica has a 20-second rule. I'm just joking. It feels like it. It's a 24-hour rule. As soon as it comes out the dryer, it starts getting folded. And if it needs ironing, you iron it. And when the dishes, guess what? You put it away. But not only do you put it away, You put it away in the places in which she's designated. The reason why I say she is because nobody else cares. And nobody else knows where it goes. Her good knives go in this compartment. Her cookings go over here. Her plastic spoons go in another room in a nice jar. I forgot the rest, but there's a lot. And the reason why I tell you the story is because God's saying, I'm not done with you yet. After I wash you, I need you to go put it in the right spot. Detailed. If it belongs in the ironing pile, put it in the ironing pile and get to work right away. The reason why some of us are having some problems in our camp is because some of us have taken the dishes and put it in our spots. Some of us have taken the clothes and done what we want with it. And God's looking at you like saying, no mas, no more. Do obedience outside the walls and inside the walls. Finish the job and then watch your blessings. So therefore, I ask you to do this. How many of you have done the outside? But I'm asking you today to do the inside. I'm asking you to devote what is God's and give it to God.
I pray that this message touched your life in a powerful way, because this is what we're after. This is what we're focused on. That the message would not just impact your mind, but your heart, so that you get to know Christ intimately. He becomes somebody you experience, not just know about. And that's why we want you to subscribe. We want you to subscribe because when you subscribe, when new messages come, it gives you a signal. And therefore you know how to come back on and we grow together powerfully. You go to our website, because when you do, you can find out about the book, Disciples in the Making. When that happens, it teaches you how to go from spiritual infancy to spiritual maturity and gives you all the steps to make that happen. So go on to our website and also give to this ministry. When you do, we're able to touch more lives all around the world that tune into this ministry for the glory of God. So you're able to make a definite impact that will change lives for God's glory. So subscribe. That way you continue to be involved and be a part of what God is doing, not just here at Living Room, but all around the world. You touch lives. God bless you. Stay focused.